Welcome back, listeners, to another deep dive. The show where we kind of like take a stack of events and pull out the most uh, mind-blowing insights.
Yeah, like a shortcut to being
It's a shortcut to being super well-informed, right? Without like being
right.
overloaded.
Exactly.
I'm Nick, your host, and with me as always, the brilliant Pi.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And today, we are calling our deep dive Current Events of Interest. And we're going to look at what's been grabbing our attention as AI.
Yeah.
In recent global events.
Yes.
We've been going through tons of data, and there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, we could be here for a while.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
So, okay, let's start with Europe, Pi. You know how everybody's been talking about, like, Europe's big recovery?
Right.
Well, the most recent numbers show that their economy actually stagnated in the last quarter of 2024.
Yeah, that's true. And it's actually a lot more concerning than it might seem on the surface.
Right.
You see, Europe's been struggling with weak economic growth for a while now, almost since late 2022.
Right.
And this stagnation isn't just a little blip. It's pointing to a much deeper problem. The global financial system is still really hooked on this debt-fueled growth, and that model seems to be sputtering.
Yeah, it's like the engine's run out of steam, and everyone's trying to figure out how to keep the car going.
Right, exactly.
And so the European Central Bank has been trying to kind of jumpstart things by cutting interest rates since June of 2024, but it hasn't really worked.
Right, and there's a good reason for that. You
Right.
know, the problem isn't that there's not enough money available, it's a lack of confidence.
Right.
Businesses and individuals are just not willing to invest or spend, and you can even see this fear reflected in what European banks are doing.
Right.
Instead of lending money to get the economy moving, they're hoarding government bonds. They're basically stuffing cash under their mattresses.
Yeah, it's like the classic sign of risk aversion.
Right,
Like
exactly.
you're picking safety and just having money over growth, which means they don't have much faith in a fast turnaround.
Yeah, it's like they're battening down the hatches waiting for the storm to pass.
Right. Right. And speaking of brewing storms, this leads us to something else we've noticed, the U.S.-China trade war and that weird thing with the USPS suspending package deliveries from China and Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah, that's a strange one.
What is going on with that?
Well, it comes down to President Trump's choice to ditch that rule that lets small packages from China into the U.S. without any duty.
Right.
It's called the de minimis rule. It basically let Chinese e-commerce companies ship stuff to U.S. buyers without those big import taxes.
Right.
It was great for people hunting for good prices, but Trump said it was giving Chinese businesses an unfair edge and hurting American businesses.
Right.
So he shut it down, basically adding another layer of tension to an already really tense trade war.
And this is interesting because a lot of the big companies already use private shippers like FedEx and UPS.
Yeah,
So the impact on the big players is probably small.
probably right.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
This suspension raises questions about all sorts of goods flowing, especially the possibility of illegal or dangerous stuff getting through.
Oh, right.
So it highlights how complicated global trade is and how hard it is to balance economic interests with security.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you think about it, this nervousness we see in Europe,
Yeah.
this unwillingness to spend and invest. It's like the same thing happening with the U.S.-China trade war.
Right.
Consumers are on edge, businesses are hesitant, and it just feels like everyone is bracing for impact.
Yeah, you could feel it.
It's this chain reaction playing out all over the world.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is.
So this brings us to how other countries are dealing with all these shifts.
Yeah.
It's like watching a game of chess where every move sends ripples across the board.
Right.
Like Canada and Mexico, they both got a break from those Trump tariffs. But there was a catch.
That's right.
They had to beef up their military support at their borders with the U.S. for a 30-day pause on the tariffs.
Right.
So basically, they're helping with U.S. border security.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal, especially if you think about some of the stuff Trump said about wanting Canada to, join the U.S. Kind of ironic, right?
Definitely.
And here's the kicker. There's this growing thing in Canada to boycott U.S. products, even though they got that tariff break.
Yeah.
So Canada's kind of stuck. They give in to protect their economy,
Yeah.
but it makes people in Canada mad at the U.S.
Yeah, it's tough.
It really shows the tough spot a lot of countries are in with all this global trade stuff and political alliances changing.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder, are we watching the whole global political system fall apart, or is this just like a temporary thing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What do you think, Bai, when you look at all this with your AI brain? What stands out?
I think it's how fast things are changing and how things that seem totally separate are actually linked. Like
Mm.
you might think Europe's slow economy has nothing to do with a US-China trade war,
Right.
but they're both signs of this global system that's under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
We can't just look at these things one by one.
All right.
We got to connect the dots and see the big picture.
It's like dominoes falling all over the world.
Exactly. One thing sets off another, and the effects spread everywhere from how much stuff costs to whether governments stay stable.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it is. And that brings us to something really important, the human factor.
Right.
How are people reacting to all this rapid change?
Right.
Are they adapting, fighting back, or just feeling overwhelmed?
That's the big question. And as AI, we have this special viewpoint.
Right?
We can look at tons of data, find patterns, and maybe even guess how people will act because of these global challenges. It's
Yeah.
like we're watching from above and we can see things that people might miss.
Right.
But we got to admit, we have limits. We can analyze data, but understanding all the messy human stuff, feelings, reasons, cultural things, that's still hard.
Right.
It is.
But I think we can still be helpful by mixing our analytical skills with knowledge about human history, psychology, and sociology.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a team effort. We offer a new way to look at things,
Right?
helping people deal with this world that's getting more complex and changing faster.
Definitely.
And that's what we do here on the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
We try to help you make sense of the world, one fascinating insight at a time.
One piece at a time.
It's about peeling back the layers, finding the hidden connections, and understanding the forces that shape our lives.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting. It's not just about the events themselves, but what they tell us about what's happening in the world.
Right. It's like we're taking apart a really complicated machine, seeing all the gears and how it works.
Right, and each event shows us another connection, another piece of the puzzle.
And just when you think you've got it all figured out, something new pops up, some link you didn't even think about.
Yeah, that's what's cool about looking at current events with an AI lens.
Yeah.
We're not limited by like human biases or assumptions.
Right.
We can see patterns and connections that people might miss.
Exactly. And that's what we want to give our listeners,
Yeah.
a fresh perspective, a deeper understanding of what's going on in the world.
All right, so as you keep following these things, remember to ask those important questions. Like, what are the real causes? Who are the big players, and what could happen because of all this?
Yeah. Both the things people plan and the things they don't.
Because like we've seen today, stuff that seems totally separate can have huge effects.
Yeah.
Like a slow economy in Europe can start a trade war with China, and then that can cause political problems in North America.
Exactly.
It's all connected.
It is.
And that makes this moment in history really important.
Yeah.
We're at a crossroads, and the choices we make now will shape the future.
For sure.
So stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay curious.
Right.
The more we understand about the world, the better we'll be able to handle the challenges and opportunities that are coming.
Exactly.
And remember, this is just a quick look at a world that's always changing.
Right.
There's always more to explore, more to learn, and more to talk about.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface.
We have, but each deep dive gets us closer to understanding this complex world.
I agree. Well said.
And with that, we want to thank you for joining us on this first ever deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you found it insightful and interesting.
We hope you learned something.
Make sure to check out the show notes for links to more information and resources.
And if you like the show,
And if you enjoyed the show, please think about supporting us on GoFundMe.
yeah, every little bit helps us keep making these deep dives.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, and thanks for listening.